us a little bit more about like the technical side of it? Like, what is it exactly about your underwear that empowers women?
So one is empowering by when your first layer is supportive and you look and you feel great, you just have instant confidence, right? You feel like you've got it together. So that's number one. Number two is falling down 7 times, getting up 8, getting kicked in the stomach, raising capital, raising over $15 million, getting a no for breakfast, no for lunch, no for dinner, getting right back up and still running the business and learning a ton on the way. So this whole aspect of being sustainable, we are a profitable business. Were we always? No, absolutely not. Like that's why I raised $15 million, but we are now. And I think that you get to create your life the way that you want it to be. And for me, I treat having the most fun ever and enjoying life to the max and working incredibly hard on my purpose, like 2 guests at my house. I treat them both with the same amount of attention. He said to me, Renata, stop everything else and just focus on that one thing. Do one thing exceptionally well and don't focus on anything else. Just do that. And that was such an unlock in my business because I think one of the biggest learnings I've had is you really need to know your numbers and you have to really understand your finances and how all of the metrics work together and how they're interconnected. So what we do with 3D is we do, first of all, not only is AI about all the questions, is about the prompts that you give it, but life is about the questions that you ask.
Hello, welcome to Underdressed, the podcast where we talk about the clothes under our clothes and exactly how they get made. My name is Trudy Gardner. I'm the freelance designer behind Wayfinder Lingerie. In this show, I'll be exploring the art, practice, and technical execution of intimate apparel. We'll be taking a behind-the-scenes look at this industry and trying to understand exactly how designers balance creativity with functionality, specifically as it pertains to our hardworking yet delicate base layers. Thanks for listening. I'll see you in the show. Renata Black, welcome to the podcast. I am super excited to have you here, co-founder and CEO of, I don't know how to pronounce it. Is it EBY or EBY?
It's EBY.
EBY Underwear. And you have a really incredible story. So I'm really looking forward to getting into it with you. Welcome.
Amazing. Awesome, Trudy. Well, listen, thank you for making the time. And I'm really curious about you. Like, what made you want to start an underwear podcast?
Oh man, long story. So I have an intro at the beginning of my podcast that explains this. But in about 2019, I started exploring the idea of having my own business. And long story behind that, I was actually a pilot in the military for 12 years and I retired in 2019. I was a stay-at-home mom for a little while. And during that time, I was making clothes for my son, my baby son. And so I was learning pattern drafting and I was learning clothing construction, and I did a diploma in fashion design. So I was learning pattern drafting and I got into pattern drafting, and then I started my own. So that was my side hustle. That was the thing that I was doing to try to start bringing in some income while I was also being a stay-at-home mom. And I just got more and more into it. I ended up getting into more technical design and pattern making and intimate apparel specifically because that's a problem that I have. Like, it's hard for me to find intimate apparel that fits myself. So being able to do that, make my own custom intimate apparel garments, was just like mind blowing for me. And then that story evolves into me learning how to use Clo3D. And now I'm a freelancer doing pattern making for intimate apparel and using Clo3D. So that's me trying to sum it all up for you. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, awesome.
So the podcast is for me to just talk to people out there in the industry and see the different ways that intimate apparel is getting made. So let's kick it over to you. Tell me about how you have such an interesting story. Can you tell me where you're at now? And then we'll dive into the history of how you got here.
Sure. And where I am now physically, or where I am now in my professional life with intimates?
Professional. Okay. So you're have a beautiful background behind you. I'm super jealous. Although it's summer here now.
Yeah. So right now the company EBY has been around for about almost, I would say, 6 years now. And I currently am living in Colombia, in Cartagena, because I have two kids that I had via surrogate. And it's the only way that I can have a fast growing D2C company is having the level of support that I have in South America. So, and I love living here, but I'm on a flight to New York. Like I'm leaving to New York today. So I'll go at least once a month. As far as the business is concerned, yeah. So EBY started around 6 years ago. It was, just my circumstances of my life led up to this point. I didn't decide to be a thong slinger. I think it ultimately just happened. And they always say luck is when preparation meets opportunity. And so I think I was just really prepared, and I had incredible opportunities along the way to now have this fast scaling D2C business, which is really creating this huge, category defining kind of products right now.
Yeah, so let's talk about the products. Like, so how did you get into doing underwear? Why underwear specifically?
So my origin story is I originally was, both of my parents died when I was very, very young, and I was adopted and brought to the States. And when I graduated from college, from University of North Carolina, I didn't get my dream job, which was working at MTV in ad sales. And I was living with a ska band at the time, and they told me about there was this ticket, the ticket around the world. And I was like, oh, I'm just going to take this trip around the world and volunteer in different countries. And while I was doing that, I started volunteering in India. And it was right after the tsunami. And this woman came up to me, and she's like, kind of, I thought she was screaming at me because I can't show your shoulders. And I had a tank top, and I was just like so embarrassed. And the translator said, she's like, look, she's not saying anything about your shirt. What she's saying is, you're American, she doesn't want money. Can you teach her how to make it? And I was like, wow, that would be incredible. That would be amazing. And I would see all this aid coming in and all these women becoming dependent on aid. And I was like, wow, that would be so cool. So fast forward, I found microfinance, which is helping women start their own businesses to come out of poverty with small loans, like $100, $150. I studied under this guy named Mohammed Yunus, who interestingly enough is now the prime minister of Bangladesh, but he started microfinance in 1979. And so I studied microfinance under him. I came back. I had a group of about 800 women, lived in India, and we had these small groups, and we'd help women come out of poverty with these small loans. And it was incredible. I'm like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. But while I was living there, women would always say to me, oh, it must be really horrible for you to live in the States because you have to show your cleavage and you have to show your legs. And I was like, what? I hate wearing this sari every day. I feel sorry for you. And it was so weird. And after living like that for 2 years in a sari, I moved back to the States, and I was watching the Victoria's Secret show. And I thought, wow, maybe these women are right. Maybe we do use seduction to objectify women. And what if we could use seduction to empower women? And so that set me on this crazy trajectory of, just using and redirecting the power of seduction to the empowerment of women. And so fast forward, I had, the writer called Deepak Chopra. He's a
Yes, yes, I have questions about this. Yeah.
yeah. And so we became very good friends, and he wrote a chapter about me in one of his books called The Soul of Leadership. And that was like incredible. And I was like, I couldn't believe that had happened. But the crazy thing is that the former CEO of Victoria's Secret, Grace Nichols, read that book, and she asked to put us in touch. And so Grace Nichols contacted me, and she's like, look, all I've ever done is create intimates for men's benefit. If you want to create intimates for women's benefit, I'll help you. And so she basically taught me everything that I know. And she's like, if you do this product, you're going to be very successful because it actually solves for the issues that women have with their underwear. And ever since then, we've been a solution-based intimate apparel company.
I love that. So when you first go on to your website, you talk about how underwear is empowering for women. And you talked about a little bit about the origin of how you've come to understand that story. And can you tell us a little bit more about like the technical side of it? Like, what is it exactly about your underwear that empowers women?
Well, two things. One is the product itself. Every single product that we have has technology on it. So the underwear have a flocking technology that prevents sliding and writing. all of the bras have a different type of support with technology so that you don't have to use underwires to get support. And our whole ethos is, why have we tolerated pain through underwires to get support, which is crazy, right? We've been doing this since 1913. So one is empowering by when your first layer is supportive and you look and you feel great, you just have instant confidence, right? You feel like you've got it together. So that's number one. Number two is that from the women who wear our product to the women who benefit from it, EBY is an access to power. So our number one channel is influencers and content creators. So we generate revenue for women through EBY. But every time the product is sold, we give a percentage back to microfinance to help women start their own businesses to come out of poverty. So it's this beautiful circular, like, the reason why I wanted to start a business to fuel microfinance is because hope is not a strategy. Without margin, there's no mission. So it doesn't matter how much good you want to do in the world and what your attention is. If you don't have a consistent revenue stream to fuel that vision or that impact, it's just not going to be sustainable. So for us, having a business that consistently fuels women's empowerment was critical, right?
Yeah, that's beautiful. I when I made the note on that topic, I wanted to like refer back. It's interesting because I always say like I have this podcast about underwear. How can you have a podcast just about underwear? But the themes um always arise amongst many different guests, and the topic of your underwear being sort of the foundation for the way that you live your life has come up like many times. So it's interesting to hear you resonate with that. Like I had a guest that once said it's like your underwear is kind of like your armor. Like you put it on and you can face like any challenge throughout the day. And then another
Mm-hmm.
way I've heard it said is like just your underwear is your foundation. So if your underwear is good, you're not worried about it. Like when you're wearing bad
Mm-hmm.
underwear, you're kind of thinking about it. It's kind of in the back of your mind all day long. But when you're wearing like underwear that's sort of like you forget about it, then
Mm-hmm.
you have more capacities to pay attention to the things that matter throughout your day.
Right.
So
You're more present as opposed to, being asphyxiated by your bra.
yeah,
That's just basically just you're strapping these metal wires to your chest all day.
yeah,
And for some reason, we've decided that that was normal.
yeah.
And so now we're like, why are we doing that? When did we agree to do this? Like there's alternatives, there's technology that solves for that. So I think that women today are performers. And why is it that if you go into any intimate apparel store, it's all about sexy or a nod to comfort, but it's not about performance. So if you go into an Adidas or Nike, it's like this fabric does this for you and this shoe does this. But the bra and underwear you wear is the closest thing to your body. It should be performance as well. And every woman is a performer. She's the head of the household. She's scheduling everyone's itinerary. She's figuring out what people are going to eat, when they're going to go to school. She's got a business, either she's running or she's a part of. She's got professional goals. Then she has to be a wife and she wants to look good. So she's going to the gym and she has to deal with all her internal things. So like that in itself is a performance, one of the biggest performance act ever. So you definitely need the clothing to support you in that.
I love it. Yeah, I love it. Yeah. We are definitely performing our lives all the way through, no matter like what role you play.
That's
I'm pretty
right.
sure that's like a Shakespearean. That comes from Shakespeare. There's a quote I can find, I'm sure. Okay. Okay, so let's get back to the soul of leadership. I pulled a few quotes from there that I really enjoyed, and I would love to hear you expand on them. One of them was you said doing entails leading by example. If I'm going to be fueling businesses by impoverished women so that they can become sustainable, mine must be a sustainable business too. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, wow, that's so powerful. I can't believe I said that. That's awesome.
It's
I
really
think
good,
I
yeah.
need I need to remember that. No, I'm kidding. So, what's so interesting is it has not been easy with our business, and it's been just 5 to 6 years of falling down 7 times, getting up 8, getting kicked in the stomach, raising capital, raising over 13 no $15 million, getting a no for breakfast, no for lunch, no for dinner, getting right back up and still running the business and learning a ton on the way. And one of the interesting things that has happened for us is that we were always very focused on our unit economics, on being profitable, right? And we could have taken in a lot more capital than we did, but I wanted to make sure that I would put investment into the company when it was already a sustainable business, because then you can put fuel into the engine and it'll scale. So we were very fortunate that we had done that, because a lot of our competitors like Cup and Parade, who were just buying their customers and had a ton of financing and investment, when the money dried out, the unit economics weren't strong enough. And so those businesses ended up kind of, selling for pennies on the dollar. So this whole aspect of being sustainable, we are a profitable business. Were we always? No, absolutely not. Like, that's why I raised $15 million, but we are now. And so it goes back to my whole point of, you can't have a mission without margin. If there isn't any profit to give, then there's nothing to give. And so it's kind of that whole concept of put your mask on first before you put it on somebody else. The base, the business has to be secure so that it could continue to spin off this impact. And then the impact becomes so engrossed into the business that even if we were to sell in 3 years, it's part of the DNA, and whoever buys it needs to continue to have that impact, because it's what fuels our returning customers. It's what fuels our influencers to feel like they're part of something bigger. So, it's hard sometimes when people want to start businesses and have a cause. That's awesome, but people don't buy your product because of the cause. They might buy it again later because they have an emotional connection to you, and that creates the repeat purchase and the sustainability. So I think it's, business fueling business can only really happen if the main business is profitable and sustained.
Oh man, that's so beautiful. And yeah, so interesting. It's I don't know, there's not many businesses out there that I can think of off the top of my head that are doing something good, but also caring about the business and finding the right balance between that. Like what I'm hearing is that you understand that the business being profitable needs to come first, but it's also inseparable from the foundation that it's based on, which is helping other women.
Correct. Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's a luxury. It's the highest luxury
Mm.
that anybody can ever achieve, is being able to create a business that creates a profit and also has an impact. But that comes with a ton of grit and a ton of grind and a ton of sacrifice. I mean, I have 2 kids right now, and I wonder if they even know who I am, because
Yeah.
I spend 16 hours a day working. I don't think that I am the ideal mom, but I make a lot of sacrifice to be able to have this. Like, everybody has to ask themselves, what's the best use of your life?
Yeah.
Some women are incredible moms, and I have so much admiration and respect for them. For me, it was always creating a business that could consistently fuel women's empowerment, and that the day that I died, not only was I able to have an amazing life, but that I was also able to, that the world was different because I was here. But that doesn't happen unless you're paying good salaries, and you're paying your investors back, and you're creating value. They're intrinsic one to the other. So I think it's a strong distinction in cause brands. And I think people might get lost in that, oh, I can have a cause and that's going to solve all my problems. It's like, no, no, no. You have to have a really strong product market fit, a really strong team, really strong unit economics. You have to have a strong business, and it has to be profitable. And then you can have an incredible cause that will, in essence, make you more valuable, and the reason that you exist that much more meaningful.
Mm. Yes. Yes. Um, okay, I had another quote um that I wanted to dig into. Okay, it's not really a quote, but I'll just kind of read this question. So in the soul of leadership, you've mentioned that your sense of purpose is to live life to the fullest, to be the best that you can be, and to leave the world better than you found it. Um, and I feel like you've explored this idea already in sort of what we've been saying, but I wanted to ask, how does this philosophy influence your leadership style and the decisions you make for the brand?
Yeah, interesting. This is a very interesting time to say that. I'm actually really enjoying you reading these quotes to me.
Oh man, it was such I really really enjoyed this one chapter. Like I only had the chance to read it and I really enjoyed it. So I highly recommend it to like
I'm gonna read
any of
it
my
myself
listeners out
now.
there.
I haven't, this was done, God, I think maybe 15 years ago he wrote this
Oh,
chapter.
okay. Okay, so this is
Uh,
really interesting that we're like
it
kind
is,
of
it
coming
is
back to these
this,
ideas. Yeah.
oh yeah, 100%. I think this book was written like in 2009 or 2010. So, and Deepak and I are still very, very good friends, and I love him so much. Yeah, so I think that still reigns supreme in my life. I'm a I really believe in working hard and playing hard, and but I'm a typical Gemini. I'm super super hard working. Like I'll work 16 hours a day, but then I'll have a ton of fun. Like we all work virtually, and we have these retreats with our team, and I'll bring 16 members of my team to Colombia, and for 3 days we'll be on an island, and we'll just like play card games and laugh and drink and just like have the best time. And so, and they deserve that because they've worked so hard and they love the company. It's not just a job for them. Like their own purpose is really intertwined, and you feel that in the company and in the team. So we have a ton of fun. And then personally, like I'm taking a flight today and I'm going to Burning Man. I've been going to Burning Man. I was actually thinking I've been going to Burning Man since like 2009. That's like almost 18 years. I was counting that today. So, and I've been working super, super hard so that I could have this time to go to Burning Man. Or like, for example, I was just in Europe with my family, but I wasn't taking time off. I started work at 3 p.m., which was when New York opened at 9 a.m., and I worked till 1 a.m. So I had my vacation mold around my work. So I think that you get to create your life the way that you want it to be. And for me, I treat having the most fun ever and enjoying life to the max and working incredibly hard on my purpose, like two guests at my house. I treat them both with the same amount of attention. Working probably takes priority most of the time. But I think more and more I'm 45 now. So I always think I have 15 years till I'm 60. So I have to really enjoy it.
Yeah, I think the same too. Like I'll be 44 this year, so we're almost the same age and it's kind of the
Nice.
same. Like I only started so I consider like my fashion career, what I'm doing, freelance business, like entrepreneurial career to have started at 40. So I'm like, "Hey man, I still have like 20 years to build this up and we'll see where I get to by the time I'm 70 and see how it goes." So, it's
That's
a fun
awesome.
time. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Okay, here's another one. You say you can do anything, and this kind of again, like you seem to be circling around the ideas before I get to them. You can do anything, but not everything. So I'm interested in how you took this approach with the brand and how at what point did you decide on what your team would look like, what work you were outsourcing, and what you thought was most important to hold on to. Sort of like what's the structure of your team and how did that evolve?
That's very interesting because that quote has been very omnipresent in my life. So I would say that for the first 4 years of the business, it was very difficult. We were really trying to find the right customer, our messaging, our footing, our offering. Just it was trying on a lot of different things that really quite weren't breaking through. And we were doing okay, but we weren't doing exceptional. Like now we're scaling at 3x the business. So it's, went from 5 million to 10 million, that's 30 million. And so the goal is to get the company to 100 million. And we're on our way to do that. It wasn't always like that. And the biggest learning I had was, and it's so funny, I just texted this to my investor yesterday. I called him and I'm like, you know what, Jesse? It's working, but it's not exceptional. And I'm just struggling. And he goes, what is the one thing that's working really well? And I'm like, well, I guess the bright spot is content creators, like influencers. I can see that's working. He said to me, Renata, stop everything else and just focus on that one thing. Do one thing exceptionally well and don't focus on anything else. Just do that. And that was such an unlock in my business because I was focusing on all these other things and I was doing everything kind of half, but not everything, not one thing exceptionally well. And the minute that we did that, it was the unlock to the business. Similarly, when we decided to launch eco-friendly lounge and bodysuits. It tanked. It tanked. It wasn't our core. It wasn't who we are. It wasn't bras and underwear. So we learned again, like, do what you are exceptionally good at and do it better than anyone else. And I think that when it comes to product, when it comes to channel, when it comes to just the team that I work with, like, I want my team to be smarter than me, to challenge me. I want them to be experts in their field, that I can trust them and that they have that commitment because they're so good at that one thing. So I think that one quote reigns supreme and is really the root of why we've been so successful.
You were saying, so you got to the point where you told your finance guy that uh you're kind of like split between too many things. Can you give us like some examples of things that were taking your attention that weren't worthwhile, things that like you got rid of, or how you sort of adjusted so that they weren't taking away from your attention?
Oh wow, that's a practice every day. So, I was actually listening to this podcast and I listen to a podcast every morning and I go to the gym every morning because I need to attack my mind before my mind attacks me. And one of the things that he was saying, he's like, one of these secrets to success is distractions. And distractions can come into many forms. And one of the forms is by focusing on the little things and not the big things. And so I feel like I've been very crippled by it because when you're smaller, you're so used to micromanaging things that when you start to grow, you have to stop the micromanaging and you have to bring in a team that can do those things exceptionally well. And if they can't do it, then you have to really be quick at firing fast and hiring slow. And it's tough because sometimes the team that helped you build the business is not the team that's going to help you scale the business. Because the one fundamental thing that happens in fast growing startups is that the team needs to grow personally and professionally as fast as the company. And if they're not, they just can't keep up and they're left behind. And you have to make those decisions very quickly because it ends up hurting the business more than you know. And you end up getting very distracted because you're micromanaging, catching all these mistakes, as opposed to focusing on the big things, the big product launches, on the innovation, on the collaborations, on team, on growth, right? What's the breakthrough? What's the message? What's the marketing? What's the vision? What's the creative? What's the product? What's the aesthetic? And that's the best use of me. And you have to be very selfish and value that about yourself so that you can protect it. And if you don't, then you're just going to continue to do everybody else's job and you're going to play small.
Hmm. Yeah. Can you tell us about can you think of any specific examples of frustrations, setbacks, or challenges you've had with the growth of EBY and how you've overcome them?
Sure. Wow, setbacks. I think there's so many of them. It'd be hard to nail just a few. There's been, I think, I think one of the biggest learnings I've had is you really need to know your numbers and you have to really understand your finances and how all of the metrics work together and how they're interconnected. Because if you don't know your numbers, you can't hit a target that you can't see. And in order to lead, you have to really be able to be a strong order and make sure that the team knows that you know where you're going and you know how to get to where you're going. And I think that's been a really big lesson. I didn't study finance. My background is not in finance. I studied journalism. I like to write originally, but now I stare at spreadsheets all day. So the big learning for me was getting comfortable with the uncomfortable and like getting into the numbers and just learning them. And especially when you're fundraising, you have to know them and you have to know them quickly. I think the other thing is with team, I've learned that you have to, when you're hiring people, get clear on their expectations very quickly, like from the beginning. And this is what we tolerate, this is what we don't, this is the expectation, this is the company that we are. And this is, and also enroll them to the possibility of like, we're out to create something incredible, something great, something that's category defining. If you're going to be a part of this, this is the expectations, not just of you personally, but also professionally. And be very quick to give feedback. Like, hey, I understand you probably wanted this to go this way, but it didn't. It went this way. This is how you can course correct this. So, and even in and being more formal and writing things and sending formal, hey, we spoke about this. I want to memorialize this so we make sure that this doesn't happen again. That takes a lot of time, but it gets clear to your team as far as like, oh, well, wait, it's very clear as far as like what expectations are. And if this is a no BS company, and they're really going to get there because they don't tolerate anything other than exceptional results from A players. I think that like holding your team to high standards, really believing in them and telling them how what they're exceptional at makes those attributes come out even more. And they want to work with a company that has high standards. And if they don't, then it's also really important to see, because in order to play in this game of $100 million companies, fast growing, D2C, VC backed in this very competitive market, you have to be very cutthroat, and it's not fun, but it's really the only way to get there, obviously with a lot of love and compassion. um but you know, this is exceptional work that we're doing, so it kind of begs for that. I would say that that's like the big learning for me, and it's very hard to do. It's not easy.
Yeah, at that level, I feel like you really have to be all in. You have to be all in on the work that you're doing, and the company has to be all in, and the whole team has to be all in on achieving the goals. Um, so I'm interested in what your team looks like. So you're in Colombia. You have is it a team in New York? Are you guys? I'm interested in like the tactical level of this. Are you having meetings every day? Like, how does this? Tell me how it like what does the flow look like to keep this company going from different
Sure,
areas of the
sure,
world?
sure, sure. So we have a really strong US team. And so I have a marketing side that my chief revenue officer, Julie, runs. And then I have an operations side that my head of ops, Lisa, runs. And then I have development. And so development, ops, production, legal, and finance all roll up under me. And then as far as marketing, influencers, Facebook, paid, email, SMS, retention, everything rolls up under Julie. And those teams, we have teams not only here in, here I say here because I feel like I'm in the States, but in all over the country, because once there was COVID, that that employee pool just got so much bigger. You could hire not just in New York, but you could hire anywhere, which was exceptionally great to hire awesome talent. But we also have a lot of key members in Colombia. And I found some incredible executives that work here that are genuinely very hungry and are very smart. And I've really liked the culture combination of bringing those two in. And then we also have a strong team in the Philippines as well. So it's a trifecta of different cultures coming together. But we manage ourselves on Slack. We really try to limit our meetings. We have no meetings on Wednesday. No meeting starts before noon, so you can have your head down time, because we respect that in the morning, it's the time you should be doing the most thinking. So there's some rigor that goes into that. And then we try to see each other at least once a year. If not, we definitely see each other twice a year. But with my executive team, I probably see them three to four times a year.
That's incredible. That's incredible. It's such an interesting time to be like living in this world where it's so easy to communicate and organize a team all around the world and have everybody moving in the same direction. That's really cool.
Definitely, definitely. No, we're super lucky. We're super lucky in that because you're working 16 hours a day, 6 days a week, like how awesome that we get to work at home. So
Yeah.
the little breaks that you have, you can go see your children and like at least give them a hug and give them a kiss, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's really incredible. Can you share any specific tools? So you mentioned Slack. Any other favorite tools or programs that you use to help make this team function?
Sure. I mean, we live on Slack. I'm a huge Google Sheets person. I think my team
Yeah, me
hates
too.
that because I like everything on a good sheet. So that's how I organize myself. My team also uses ClickUp, which is how they keep themselves organized. We just started with the new attribution tool called Northbeam because obviously attribution is so important. Like, where is the traffic coming from? Where are we attributing marketing spend? So that if you don't know what you're spending money on, you're not exactly sure if that channel is profitable. So when you're scaling this fast, attribution becomes very important. So we just started on with Northbeam. But on top of that, we have another 40 apps that are connected to our store.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
it's just it's one big, but I'm more of a just I run it, I run most things on either Docs or Excel. I'm for a digital run business, I think I'm very basic
Yeah.
in my but I think, the team is always, we're very, very data driven. So we have WBO, which we're running A/B tests in our company. If you don't measure it, it's not worth doing. You just don't do it. We don't do anything that you can't measure. Even on a personal and professional level, like if you can't professionally measure what you're doing, it's not worth doing. Because when you measure things, you just get better.
Mhm.
So everything in our company is, if you don't come to a meeting without talking about what happened last year and how you're measuring and what you're learning. We're huge on the debrief. Anytime we have a sale, anytime there's a launch, we have a debrief. Like, okay, what went well? What didn't go well? How are we going to pull those learnings forward? We're very much a learning organization.
Yeah, I was as I mentioned earlier, I was a military pilot, and after every single flight, all the way through training, but also operationally as well, we always had a debrief with the whole team after every flight, talking about what went well, what didn't go well, and how can we apply these lessons learned going forward. And because you're doing that with every team every time, those lessons get filtered through the whole organization, which is
Mhm.
just a really good way for learning to happen, and for the whole organization to grow, not just like individuals within it.
Correct, correct. It's so funny because I actually learned that from a book, from a pilot. It's called, I can't remember the name of the book right now. Um, it's called, I don't know, The Debrief. I can't remember the name of the book, but he's a fighter jet pilot, similar to the Top Gun ones. It's called Debrief to Win. And
Mhm.
everything is about the debrief,
Yep.
everything. And then when you document those lessons, when you have somebody new starting, they can read the lessons. So it's like, okay, here are the mistakes we've made. So let's not have a learning curve again. So it's
Yeah.
super, super smart. I think it's been a big optimization in our organization, is having a learning organization. And then, I always tell my team, if you make the same mistake, it's okay to make a mistake, but learn from it because the company has learned from that, has paid for that. If you make a mistake over and over, now that's a decision. Now that's different. Like, you need to learn from your mistakes, not just continue to, oh, I learned this. And if you're learning the same thing, it's like, no, 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 that's not what this is about. This is about making less mistakes and learning and bringing those learnings forward. I think that's a really strong distinction.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, learn how does there's a quote again around that, learn from the mistakes of others so you don't have to make them yourself. For sure, it's true.
Mhm.
Sometimes you got to make them yourself to really learn them, but but definitely being able to learn from other people is like that's how the whole system grows. Like if you want, everyone in your team to be better, you guys
Mhm.
if you learn from each other, that's the way to go. I wanted to ask before we run out of time specifically. So as I mentioned earlier, I am pretty deep into using Clo 3D specifically for product development. And this is probably not something that you personally work in, but I'm wondering if it's incorporated 3D development in terms of design. Do you know if that's your team is incorporating that into the product development process at all, or in any capacity?
So what we do with 3D is first of all, we do 3D printing on our
Oh,
products.
cool.
So the latest product that we're coming out with is a patent that I just acquired from a German inventor. And it is a technology that completely replaces the need for an underwire. Like, there's bras out there that give you the support, but this actually replaces the need for an underwire while still giving you the support and the effect that you're looking for with an underwire without it being a wire. And so this technology is going to be coming out in October, and it's all 3D silicone with a nylon thread. So we do a ton of it because we own a 3D technology. And then when we're doing the renderings, showing the customer everything is on a 3D spin, showing how the technology works. So yeah, we're pretty embedded with 3D.
Oh, that's so cool to hear. If I, the more I can know about that, the more I'm interested in it. Can you tell us what specific programs you use? Do you know if it's like Clothes 3D or Browseware or something proprietary?
That I can't tell you because
Okay.
I don't go that deep into it.
Yeah, exactly.
My
That's your
designers do,
we're
and
in the
yeah.
tactical level here. Yeah.
Mhm.
Incredible. That's incredible. Yeah, I definitely look forward to watching the development of that technology and that product because I a lot of the organizations working with intimate apparel don't lean into the new technology. A lot of them are stuck in old the original ways, traditional ways of doing things. And
Right.
can you, I don't know if like you guys are definitely future looking or you're looking towards the future in and bringing your company into the future. So it makes sense that you are leaning into the new technology. Um, so it's great to hear that.
Great.
Okay,
Thank you.
I usually wrap up the podcast by asking what is your favorite part of doing what you do in your business and what's your least favorite part?
Oh, favorite part. Um, I I love seeing I set the vision for all of the photo shoots, and I love to see them come to life. So I do love that creative aspect of it. And I design all of the pieces for the photo shoot. So every piece of accessory that she wears on the shoot, I've designed it, and it's all custom made. So I love that level of detail. I I love seeing the outcome of that. I love the marketing part of it. I love words because I was a writer. Well, I guess I am a writer. Um, so I love writing text and just anything that has to do with the verbiage of campaigns and what that looks like. Sadly, I don't get to spend a lot of time on all that because I'm engrossed in the finance. The part that I like least, I would say I have a very high expectation of myself, and I hold my team to a very, very high expectation. And I think the hardest part is when people don't believe enough in themselves, they don't invest enough in themselves to reach their maximum potential, and you see it in them, and they're just not taking the time, the energy, the commitment to go all in their own professional career. And so that part I feel is probably the part that I like the least, because it's my job to say, hey, you have this level of potential. Think about the fact that your biggest limitation is your biggest thought. Like, how limited are you? And what could be possible if you lived outside of fear? What could be possible if you put more time, more dedication into your craft and become a master and an expert and a top athlete in this, not just for EBY, but for your own professional career, for yourself? And so some people do it and some people don't. So the part that I don't like is when they don't do it, because I that's not the kind of team that I like to keep around.
Nothing more frustrating than seeing somebody who can do it. They have it and they're not doing it. Nothing more frustrating than that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Real quick before I let you go, I want to ask about AI. So and it sparked this question for me because you said you liked writing and you liked marketing and doing the design for the photo shoots. Tell me what you think about it. What do you think about it? Like it's there now. It's something that we can use. People are on two sides. They either hate it or they see the potential in it. Where do you stand?
Oh no, I love AI. I use it all the time. I have to write a lot of very compelling emails, persuasive, negotiating, and I love to use AI. I love to just voice text something and then drop it into AI and say, negotiate this. Make it short, make it concise, and do it in the voice of Ray Dalio, who's one of the biggest, businessmen. Or, here, this is a word that I'm struggling with. Give me 10 different words. So it helps me expand my vocabulary if I want to get very granular, or use something for marketing that I'm not just hitting it. So I use, it's all about the questions that you, not only is AI about all the questions, is about the prompts that you give it, but life is about the questions that you ask, right? I think that's what a CEO does, is constantly just ask questions. And so if you're good at asking questions like, why are you doing this? How are you doing this? When are you going to do this? What's stopping you? What could help you? What's your vision? What would it look like? That's what a CEO does, is just ask questions. So I'm very good at AI because all I do is ask questions for my professional career. So I'm very good at asking it questions. And I think that AI is only as good as whoever uses it. And if you're good at using it, it's an incredible secret weapon for sure.
Mm. Yes, that's how I see it. I see it that way too. And I say this to my son who's 7 years old now all the time. Doesn't matter. It's going to be out there. You can look at the answers in the back of the math, the math textbook, but it doesn't like the answers don't matter. It's about asking the right questions and seeing if your thought process is going in the right direction to get you where you want to go. Um, I think that's it. That's all. I'm going to let you go. Thank you so much. I really, really enjoyed this conversation. It was incredible getting to have a little bit of your time, Renata.
No worries, Trudy. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
Amazing.
Awesome. Have a great day.
Thanks, you too.
Okay, appreciate it. Bye.
Bye.